I think we're going to get started.
Traditionally, this is when you applaud.
No. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and if you are within the sound of my voice but not yet seated, you should come in. We aren't giving away any YA novels, but it's still going to be an excellent presentation. Yeah, Twitter's leaving the room already. Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Ryan Chapman. I'm the marketing director at Atavis Books.
And I'm Amy Greko. I run vendor relations for US for Kobo Books.
But that's not important. What is
really
important
irrelevant.
is we picked a few presenters who are doing incredible work in the technology sector that we thought publishers should take a look at. Some of this stuff will be familiar to some of you. Some of it will be incredibly mind-blowing. And there are between 3 and 8 cat photos among the slides today. So, never not boring.
I'll do a run. Let me give you
Yeah,
guys a rundown.
you can explain the panel.
So basically, Ryan and I invite 7 really smart people, and we make them make PowerPoint presentations, and then we spend 10 minutes putting them into a major PowerPoint presentation, and at the end, everyone tells Ryan and I how good we did. So that's how this will work. So the format is the slide. Everyone brought 20 slides with them, and the slides are set to advance automatically every 21 seconds. The idea is that the talk will move really quickly. The speaker will sort of be kept on his or her toes, and it'll be a lot of fun for you as well.
And yeah, we should just get started.
Yeah, let's just get started.
Okay. First up, we have Alexis Ohanian from Reddit. Actually, I'm going to... Yes, it works. Okay, good.
Yay.
So I'll let Amy introduce Alexis.
Okay. Alexis Ohanian is a startup guy with the aim of making the world suck less. Y Combinator ambassador, investor, and soon to be author. Come on up.
Should be good.
All right. Hello, everyone. In the back? Yes? No, we need more. We need more volume. Aha. Wait, no? No, it's still... Ah, there it is. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right. Whew. My name is Alexis Ohanian, and I want to tell you guys something very obvious. Despite what Tom Friedman says, the world is not flat. NASA knows. World not flat. Don't listen to him or his mustache, because it's not true. What is true is that the World Wide Web is flat, and the slides are not advancing. They will? Really? Oh, wow. That was a long 20 seconds. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is not flat. The World Wide Web is. And the internet is itself the world's greatest library and the world's greatest stage all in one. And it's basically what I've lived my entire adult life on, doing things. And it's going to be huge. If you're not already a fan, be a fan, because the internet is disrupting everything. It's disrupting all of the things. And what's so exciting about that is we don't actually know where it's all headed. We just know that things are changing. And what that means, if all links are created equal, is that the best ideas really can win. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal, because there's always been good ideas, but there hasn't always been great ways to bring them to the world. Now, I know this firsthand because I co-founded a site after graduating from UVA called Reddit. That was most recently called by Ad Age the mainstream media. It grew out of 2 guys in an apartment in Medford, Massachusetts to be one of the largest websites on the internet today, with 70 million unique visitors a month. And that's not simply a Reddit story. That is a story of what the internet can do, and from some humble beginnings can create amazing things. And I've been a startup guy who draws mascots for all of my startups. It's not required. I just really like cute logos. And you'll be happy to know the Bread Pig makes some appearances a little bit later. But I was fascinated by my own experiences, seeing people so enamored they were willing to tattoo logos on their bodies. That cost, I don't know what, but I hope he never regrets it. But the advertising budget that brought us there was only $500. Who got convinced to use Facebook because of a Super Bowl ad? No one, right? These ideas spread naturally and organically because people like them. And when you hear otherwise, facepalm, just like Picard. All right, because anyone who calls themselves a social media expert, a guru, they are probably clowns. All right? These ideas are powerful because they don't just affect startups. In fact, we're seeing them change, and oftentimes firsthand, seeing them change all kinds of fields, not just business, but philanthropy, the arts, activism. And these are all things that make me really happy, right? And they should make you happy too, just like this cat. Oh, right, it's also made a lot of cats very internet famous. This is a big deal. And I'm so excited about it. And the reason why I've been so fired up about it is because I'm seeing it change people's lives all over the world. And I wanted to write about it. I've seen it actually change my own life. Forbes magazine has said some very generous things about me. It took a lot of Foursquare check-ins to become mayor of the internet. This happened because I helped a bunch of American citizens say no to two terrible bills called SOPA and PIPA, if you remember, back in January. But I've gotten to be a part of some amazing organizations like DonorsChoose.org. I'm on their advisory board. That's a nonprofit that was started just after 2000, long before Reddit, Facebook, Kickstarter, and has basically become a transformative platform for allowing public school teachers to fund their classrooms directly by people all over the world with something as simple as a credit card. That's a powerful idea, and we started right here in New York, up in the Bronx. I'm a Brooklyn guy, but I still love for the Bronx. It's helped this comedian, Zach Anner, who is hilarious, become internet famous when he auditioned for a TV show on the OWN network. And he's a guy with cerebral palsy who had a story to tell, who wanted to create a travel show for the internet age and found it simply because he didn't need to ask for permission. He could just create a video. We helped a soul legend named Lester Chambers, part of the Chambers Brothers, producers of some of the greatest hits of the 70s and 80s, who literally did not get paid because his record company signed a crappy deal with him and refused to pay the man his due, even after gold record after gold record. So we helped him launch a Kickstarter campaign, and he raised $70,000 to create an album that he himself would own, not having to go through a traditional label. We also crowdfunded a giant bus that we took across the heartland from Denver, Colorado to Danville, Kentucky, because I wanted to make sure that everyone knew. We took a half dozen journalists and our own documentary film crew, because I wanted everyone to know that innovation is not just Silicon Valley, it is all over America. It's happening in the heartland right now, and I met the people doing it. And so when I see magazine covers like this, I'm like, really? 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 Weren't they saying this about Generation X a generation ago? Well, you know what? Millennials are looking out into a world where convention isn't going to work because they were told, do well in school, pay for it, and you're going to have a job coming out, and it's not there. But I'm meeting them every day who are finding paths of their own, who are creating careers of their own thanks to the internet. And they're helping redefine what it means to be an entrepreneur. I don't want this word to just mean startup founders. People are being entrepreneurial all over. And the response has already been phenomenal. Just sharing these ideas and these stories online, I've found such a response from people. I mean, I've got people on Facebook taking photos of essentially my book cover on their torso because these ideas resonate with them. And I don't speak French, and I know that word probably does not mean what I think it means. But there's a bigger point here, and that is that this is something that is resonating inside every one of us in this generation because we know that the convention and the status quo doesn't have to be that way. There's no good reason why it should be. And so the fact that I've had about 50 universities reach out to have me as part of what will hopefully be an awesome book tour this fall is so exciting because I already speak to these university students and I already get to see some of the best, the brightest in this country who are hungry to do things, to create, but it's still just a fraction of the ones who need to know about all the potential that exists using the internet to make their awesome ideas a reality. And it's exciting because, you know, for the longest time there were these gatekeepers who decided what albums got funded, who decided where money and nonprofits were going to go, who decided what rules were going to be followed. And slowly, in this digital age, those gatekeepers have fallen. We're seeing it happen time and time again, and I've given you a few examples of some of the people that I've been fortunate enough to work with who are doing this very thing. But as this changes, as this emerges, as the internet age continues to eat the world, to paraphrase Mark Andreessen, it's going to mean so much more opportunity. And I guess why it makes me so happy is because I've known there have always been awesome people who have not always had the opportunity to share their awesomeness with the world. Maybe it was because of all kinds of stupid reasons that they didn't get to bring their ideas to the world. And the internet is the most democratic platform we have. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about bringing it into the home of every American at a reasonable price, at a reasonable rate, and giving them the skills to make the most out of it. And so I think this is a pretty powerful idea. I think it means a tremendous amount of power for all the people creating in the digital age, and that's why I wrote this book about not just my own experiences as an entrepreneur, but about the experiences of people I've gotten to know in the fields of the arts, of activism, of philanthropy, all of these things that are being affected and changed, and I hope it inspires them. I hope it inspires you this October 1st when it comes out. My name is Alexis Ohanian. Please tweet at me on the Twitters. I'm even on Google+. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. If you guys should all like book your next flight using Hipmunk, only because the Hipmunk like loading animation when you're looking up flights is really cute, and you know, Bing.com/travel has no cute mascot helping you book flights. So next up we have my friend and Amy and I's favorite Swede, Henrik Bergen. Henrik Bergen is the founder of Readmill and its chief happiness officer. According to his profile page at Readmill, he's 49% of the way through the book Do Disrupt by Mark Shaler. See? I'm embarrassing you in public. So let's all welcome Henrik.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Great to see you all here. So I'm going to try and do this. And since English is not anywhere near my native language, you have to be extra nice. Otherwise, I'll do it in Swedish, and it won't be half as fun. Okay. So hey, everyone. I'm Henrik. I run a company out of Berlin, Germany, called Readmill. And I'm here to talk a little bit about 5 things why working in books and technology is pure awesomeness, and why it gets to drive us every day, and why we fly all the way over to America to attend this crazy conference. So Readmill is a bunch of reading apps for different platforms. We do things a lot differently than a lot of other people, because we let people share and discover and connect with other readers and authors and publishers in the margins of those books, so when you are actually reading them. We also care a lot about design and typography to make reading really awesome. But we also make people make it possible for people to share, to store all of the books in one place, synchronize them across all the devices, so they have that book ready all the time with you to read it on the subway or whenever you have the possibility. So I can actually get more than 49% across that book that Ryan just mentioned. But getting things into that library is really hard. So we built a button, the button that I've made in my world that I'm most proud of. This button is now installed in 65 retailers all across the web, and it's being shown to 1 million book buyers a month that is clicking it and sending books to us that they want to read. That's amazing. So 5 reasons of why I love working on books, why I love working on technology and reading, and why that kicks ass, and what I've been doing it for every day, 24 hours of those days for the last 2 years. So I'll go through those 5 really quickly. And the first one, obviously, I'll start with my favorite, and I think it has some common parts to Alexis. Haters are going to hate. So in every internet service that you build, in every app, there are a lot of haters. And they keep us going every single day. And there are so many outlets where people are just letting us know about their frustration of a lot of things. I got this review the other day. You can't see anything about that, so I'll read. It's just like iBooks, but worse. You can't change the font size, and it has huge margins, yada, yada, yada. And of course, it has a dumb name. Well, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and fix that for you. And I got this the other day also. Well, the title said it all, dumbass. Well, but really, who are these people? There are very high-quality readers out there in the world, and guides like these shouldn't even be allowed in. Hucksters. I'm not sure what hucksters mean, but I'm sure it's not a good thing. So there are as many ways to read as there are readers, and that's why it makes it a lot of fun to build these applications for people that love to read books, because we don't only get hate, we actually get a lot of love as well. And how many apps can you build that would actually make people write lengthy blog posts about you putting text on a screen? It's hard to get so much appreciation for that. And this is Caddy, which is someone I've recently started to love, and she puts it elegantly. If you love reading, you should be on Readmill. If you don't love reading, I'm not sure why you are or why you're reading this post. And we also started a new service just a while ago. So we started doing hookups between people. It's amazing. Max and Nicole actually met on Readmill, and he asked her to marry him. And she said yes. So I mean, even if you don't love reading, maybe you can sign up on Readmill. Maybe you'll get lucky. Actually, it works. But on a more serious note, reading and building applications for reading for next generation of people is super important. When you Google for a book today, you get the author, the cover, the title, and maybe a few ratings and reviews. But that's not the knowledge. That's not the interesting thing about books. The interesting thing is what's between the covers. So I usually compare books on the web and digital books today as an iceberg, right? We only see the very, very, very top part of the knowledge, of the ideas, of the amazing stories when we actually search for something. And there's a lot of things still to uncover. And of course, I mean, mobile is eating this world alive. And if we don't build great applications for the generations to come, people are going to read less and less. And that's not what we want to create. So we need to realize that we are competing not amongst titles, but actually with competing with Facebook and Angry Birds. Which brings me to this, right? So the cat picture. So social is extremely important. Social in books has been social for a long time. And this is not the right slide though, but maybe uh-oh. This is not, uh-oh, something happened. Technical failure.
I think it's just this.
Uh-huh. Right when I thought I was on a streak. Terrible.
Yeah, we'll see. Huh?
No?
We're going to try like unplugging it in and plugging
Okay.
it back in.
Yeah, try and unplug it and plug it in. Okay, I'm so gonna lose all of you guys now. There we are. Yeah, so the cat picture. So social has been extremely important for books for a long time. And it's going to be even more important going forward. So we need a place where you have your friends, where you can recommend books to each other in a great way, and where you find out what they are reading. Is it auto-advancing now or no?
No.
No?
It should be changing.
Yeah, it should be changing. Something is still.
Improvise.
I'm going to improvise. Okay, I'm just going to take it. Yeah, because if it's going to have as big of a revolution for books as it has for photos. If you look at the explosion of mobile photo apps in the recent years, there's no non-social apps out there. And what about the big opportunity? So I think that the opportunity we have now to building greater applications is enormous, because everything basically we have now sucks. It's complicated, it's expensive, it's fragmented, it has something called digital rights management. Right now something is happening still, but it's super slow. It's now not 21 seconds, it's like 41 seconds or something like that. So I'll just finish off by saying, if you want to build something great, talk to us at Readmill. If you like Berlin, well, we'd love to have you. Thank you so much. Okay. With technical issues? Okay. Yeah, I see.
You got it.
Yeah, you do it.
Oh, you just press play in the top left corner.
There we go. I just want to state for the record, this is our fourth, but it's our first technical difficulty. So Stephanie Pereira not only delivered us her slides before any of the boys that you'll see presenting, she did it in like 2 days. So it's going to be pretty amazing just to hear her talk. She's the director of the art program at Kickstarter. She previously worked as the associate director of learning and engagement at iBeam. Everybody give her a big hand.
All right, hey, so what's up? My name is Stephanie. Obviously, I'm an art person, but I know a lot about Kickstarter, so hopefully this will be good for you. So you guys hopefully all know Kickstarter is an incredible platform for funding creative projects. Many, many, many projects, over 100,000 have been launched. And it's a really powerful way to tell a story and engage people in a project idea. In exchange for people's support, and this is really key in the way Kickstarter works, it's not a donation platform. You're saying, hey, I have this incredible idea, I'm really passionate about it, I think it's cool, and if you pledge money and help me bring it to life, you will get things in exchange. Most typically, it's a copy of the thing you're trying to make, so writers, really easy, it's a book. But you also get to offer all sorts of creative experiences. This has been a really transformative way for making things in the world, and so we've seen some really huge numbers since our launch 4 years ago. Over 4 million people have pledged to over 100,000 projects, as I've said. Over 42,000 of those projects have been successful, and over $632 million has been pledged to creative projects on Kickstarter. So kind of awesomeness there. And then these are our publishing stats. So publishing is a huge category on site. It's right up there with film and music, with over 3,400 successfully funded projects, over $29 million, nearly actually $30 million pledged to projects on site. I updated this yesterday, so these are really fresh stats. And I wanted to also give you a sense of how that breaks down to an individual project. On average, people are pledging over $50 to a project on Kickstarter. So it's more than just the book, as I said earlier. It is for some sort of experience, some sort of deeper engagement in the project. People are usually setting out to raise about $5,000, but they're raising closer to $7,000. So it's 45% overfunded. So people are doing well. I wanted to give you a way to understand who these people are and what they're doing on site. So there's a bunch of different stories I'm going to tell you from all different backgrounds. And I think that you will enjoy them. They're some of my favorites. So let's see, once they load. 21 seconds is longer than you think. All right, so this is one of the first publishing projects that ever happened on Kickstarter. It's an incredible success story by a guy named Robin Sloan. If you don't know this project, I highly recommend you look it up. In fact, over this summer, we were lucky enough to have a woman named Diana Kimball write an extensive case study about it, which you can find on our blog. But Robin Sloan did something amazing in that he realized that he's doing this thing on the internet, and the internet is really good, as Alexis pointed out, at engaging people and telling stories and engaging them in the creative process and making things. So if you look at his project through his updates and all the ways that he ran this project, people were deeply involved, not just buying a copy of the book, but following his creative process as it unfolded. So again, really, really well sort of documented in this incredible case study. This is a more recent project by a guy named Jack Chang. It was to fund his first novel. So he actually backed Robin's project. They know each other. I think it's really nice to have these two side by side. And this is an amazing story. This guy is totally unknown. I mean, he's known. He's a writer like on the internet. He's known as that kind of guy, but he'd never written or published a book before. And he tells this really eloquent story about what his desire is, how he wants to pull these loose essays together into something. And it's something that I backed his project. I just looked at him and I watched his story, I read some of what he wrote, and I was like, I would love to see your book. And this is a classic way that Kickstarter works. Since he's been running his project, he wrote these incredible weekly updates to us, his backers, his fans, his followers, sharing his creative story. This is another great story from Kickstarter, a woman named Keo Stark, who had actually already had a published book. And she decided to come to Kickstarter to self-publish a book. So whereas, Robin was publishing his first book and then later on was published, where Jack is publishing his first book, Keo is sort of a seasoned professional and wanted to unpack the system a little. This is interesting. So these guys, not writers, they're fans of lucid dreaming. They wanted to. There's no great sort of field guides, as they call it, to the process of lucid dreaming, and they did not reach out to a publishing community, to a writing community. They reached out to their fellow lucid dreamers, and they said, or potential lucid dreamers, and they said, this is a thing that can happen. This is a thing that can exist. It was very successful, as you saw, and after the Kickstarter was realized and they put all the books out in the world, they've actually since been published and translated into 4 languages. So this was an update they sent to us just a few weeks ago to announce it. This is a cover of the book. They said, hey, we want you to know the book that you backed, that you pledged, it is a special edition. It will never exist again. It's yours. We've made tweaks and it now exists here. I also love pointing out this project because they tried once before. They launched a Kickstarter project with a $17,000 goal. They made about 10% of that and called it quits. They realized something was not totally right. They rejiggered, they relaunched, and you could see they ended up raising over $27,000. And So this is a really common story on Kickstarter. People are not, just having these one-shot successes. This is like the future, I think, right? So taking books that you can, that have fallen into sort of the public domain, and you can sort of recreate or remix that content. So of course, the proposal here was to replace the N-word with robot in Huck Finn. And this was not just a writing project, this was in a beautiful editorial project. So throughout the project, as it was happening, as it was coming to life, we the backers got updates like this, where it was not just the words that were being reimagined, but also the images. So one of the project creators is an incredible illustrator, and she made all of this, including a really beautiful cover of the book. It's available on their website, or just check out their website just for fun. It's not just authors using Kickstarter, it's also publishers. This is a guy named Greg Albers from Hall Art Books. He's passionate about ebook publishing, and he realized that one of the biggest barriers, particularly to artists, but to anyone, is that ebook publishing is hard to do and make look really good. So he wanted to make this platform called the People's eBook. Obviously wildly successful. It's also independent bookstore owners and small press publishers like Chloe Daly, based in Portland, Oregon, who you can see she recently raised over $50,000 to rebuild, redesign, relocate her bookstore. A very successful bookstore and also small press publisher, as I said earlier. This, again, a question I get all the time from people: can you run more than one project on Kickstarter? The answer is absolutely yes. If you make something that is rewarding, Chloe has run something like 10 projects now, whether it's to publish something, to do a print run, a special edition print run she wouldn't otherwise be able to afford, or to build a new bookstore that she reaches out directly to her fans and says, hey, let's do this together. So as long as you do it and do it well, yeah, you can do it over and over and over again. This is a well you can come back to. Finally, I wanted to end on this. People are always concerned about giving away their content for free or for too cheap on the internet. I believe wholeheartedly that putting it out there is the best thing you can do for yourself. You can see these people all price their books, the digital version, DRM free most often, sometimes even Creative Commons license, and the physical version differently. On average, everyone pledged $25. So good point, right?
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Just out of curiosity, how many people here have already contributed to a Kickstarter campaign? That's pretty awesome. Okay, so next up we have Elon Zachary, right? Okay, make sure I pronounced that right. Elon is a co-founder of Rap Genius. He's originally from Detroit, Michigan. Malcolm X was an important figure in his early development, as you'd assume. It may have been Malcolm X's swagger and preachings that led Elon to focus on religious studies at Yale University. Prior to beginning his life's work at Rap Genius, Elon wrote for HBO's Deadwood and worked at Google. This is true. Elon is also a clinically trained hypnotherapist. So let's give a warm welcome for Elon Zachary.
All right. Is this thing on? All right. So I'm going to talk about how a site that started about explaining the meaning of rap lyrics might be relevant to the way you read books forever for the rest of your life and all your kids and grandkids. So I like to start off with a little lyrical pop quiz to get you in the spirit of how we built the site. So this line is, I'm like the fly Malcolm X, buy any jeans necessary. Does anyone know what that is a reference to? There's a hint in my bio. Anybody? One guy. What does it mean? That's right, by any means necessary. So this is what Rap Genius does. You go to the line in the song, lots of kids, lots of people out here, lots of venture capitalists don't know what this line means. And if you click on the line of the song, Good Morning, right there, you'll see that there's a whole explanation of it. You can click on any of those orange lines. There are over 2 million of those annotations on the site by hundreds of thousands of users. It's like Wikipedia, it's totally crowdsourced. But unlike Wikipedia, many of our contributors are actually artists. So we have verified artists, like Twitter has verified accounts. So if you're rap fans, you probably know about Kendrick Lamar, Nas, classic, first rapper on Rap Genius. Absol's a guy who comes over to Rap Genius headquarters a lot. All these guys are like the biggest rappers right now outside of maybe Jay-Z. And so this is an example of why you have verified explanations. This is Nas telling the story about a courtroom scene that he was watching unfold in the studio while he was recording an album. And the courtroom scene actually had someone he recognized from childhood and he put that courtroom story into his song. And only Nas would know this, or someone who's in the studio with Nas would know this, and now it's on his song forever. We're getting support from all sorts of artists, big and small. So from Nas, people like that, all the way down to amateur artists who just love Rap Genius, love putting their lyrics up on Rap Genius and talking to other people in the Rap Genius community. This is Monster Mike. He's the first artist with a verified giant Rap Genius neck tattoo on his body. So we show him a lot of love for getting that tattoo. But it's not just rap. It's all genres of music. So this is just a recent example of a song that's been really popular on our site. If you search Daft Punk Get Lucky on the internet, this is going to be the first result, and this is lyrics with community annotations from probably 150 different people annotating and editing each other's annotations and curating it so the final product is really good. And of course you can listen to the song too. It's not just all genres of music, it's all languages. So this is a French song by an Algerian rapper named Medine, and he actually gives a shout out to Rap Genius in his rap that says, as long as the streets keep giving me juice, I'm going to keep giving work to the webmaster of Rap Genius. And so it kind of misunderstands the nature of the crowdsourcing the site, but whatever, we'll take it. It's pretty cool. Not just other languages, all sorts of text. So this is an example of a news document, and this was the first sort of news item that took off on the site. Not this item, but presidential speeches. People would start putting them up, because you can put up any sort of text on the site. So people were putting up State of the Union type speeches or speeches about major events and annotating them with the little hidden elements of political speeches. But any sort of current event news document. Instagram came out with terms of use that put the internet in a sort of uproarious state, and people came on and they exposed, like, what does this really mean about my photos, and what can Instagram really do with my photos here? And there are probably about, 36 scholars annotated it. But it's not just news and tech stuff. It's not just like a startup website thingy. This is a whole community of scholars. This is people interested in all sorts of different stuff. So huge sections of the Bible are put up. And sometimes it's put up by rap fans who are also interested in the Bible. Sometimes it's just youth groups, a cool pastor whose kids like rap. He gets his whole class to annotate stuff in the Bible. And there's a whole community around biblical stuff. There's a huge community around poetry. You could search any major poet, many contemporary poets, and you're going to find some work annotated on Rap Genius by people who just love poetry. And all these people talk to each other on the site through groups and forums and chat and messaging. They get updated on when other people are editing their work. So it's a whole social community around being a scholar. Authors picked up on this. This is a poet. He's been published in The New Yorker, and this is a poem he wrote about Michael Jackson. And he put it up on Rap Genius, and those green lines are his verified annotations. The orange ones are annotations from his community of readers. And he put up a bunch of great stuff about his own poem and got way more readership than he even did in The New Yorker. This is according to him. This is a great example of what Rap Genius could be in the future. The entire Great Gatsby, chapter by chapter, sentence by sentence. Obviously, there are parts that are not annotated, but it's fully annotated text on Rap Genius that you can go and you can just read the annotated Great Gatsby chapter by chapter. And that was done by this really incredible guy and his class. This is a screenshot from his syllabus that we just found randomly. He's a Rap Genius user. He is also an English teacher and a PhD at University of Texas. And he had all of his kids sign up for Rap Genius accounts and start annotating little bits of the Great Gatsby. People in the Rap Genius community saw that, joined in the project, so it was this massive collaborative classroom meets the world project to annotate the entire Great Gatsby, which is annotated very well. But from that example, Jeremy, the teacher who we reached out to, has actually started working at Rap Genius, and he's kind of like the education czar of Rap Genius, so to speak. And he goes out to schools, high schools and colleges, and gets them doing stuff like this. Putting Moby Dick on the site, putting Heart of Darkness on the site. So schools have generated all sorts of amazing annotated content on Rap Genius, and it's only going to get better over time. It's not like a teaching tool that you use in your classroom, then you throw away. Another class is going to go in and take a look at the Great Gatsby, and their assignment is going to be to edit it and make it better. This is a graduate biology class centered around fish that came in together and annotated this scientific article about fish sex changes. This is a government agency, the U.S. Geological Survey, having its scientists annotate a recent report it put out. So it put out this report about the impact of storm waves on sea levels in these islands in the Pacific. And this chief scientist guy at the U.S. Geological Survey came in and tells you what inundation events are, et cetera, et cetera. Relevant to you guys, maybe perhaps, is authors starting to put up segments of their own work on Rap Genius. This is Adam Mansbach. He wrote the children's book, Go the Fuck to Sleep, which was a New York Times bestseller. He came out with a novel. He put chapter 1 on the site, did about 80 annotations, 41 verified on chapter 1. He also put up chapter 2. And it was a great success for him. He promoted his book on the site to sell to Amazon, got a lot of attention online. Even Sheryl Sandberg, so a regular person, put up chapter 1 or the introduction of Sheryl Sandberg's book, and we got a note from her publisher saying, hey guys, this isn't cool. You can't put up chapter 1 of Sheryl Sandberg's book on your site. And we were like, well, we're sorry, community did it. Check out these annotations. Like, maybe Sheryl thinks this is cool. Sheryl might be aware of Rap Genius. Anyway, Sheryl got involved, and she was like, this actually is cool. And she did a bunch of verified annotations and used it to promote her book and sold it on Amazon through our site. This is the DMCA, an important intellectual property document, which is relevant to lots of people in publishing, the internet, music, certainly. And this is annotated by a Stanford professor of IP who likes to also annotate Salt and Peppa lyrics. Thank you.
I just want you to note, I'm noticing everyone who's in this room, so if anybody blows up Rap Genius's spot with The Great Gatsby being online, I'm coming to find you. So David Jacobs is one of my favorite people in publishing. He launched a company called 29th Street, which I immediately started chasing him down to have him come talk at book camp and hang out generally. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say today. So David Jacobs is the founder of 29th Street Publishing. He previously founded App Perceptive, which was acquired by 6apart in 2008. At 6apart, he was vice president of services and platform products. Give my hand. Come on up. Just hit the slide. Just hit the space bar when you're ready to go.
Plenty of time. Thanks, Amy. So I'm actually going to start off with a story about the most recent unconference. It was called Book 2. It was a couple months ago, and this is just the bookshelf next to my computer where I was working on these slides last week. And at the end of the day at the conference, there was a moment when there was an open session and everyone had to put on a card one question or one comment that they never wanted to hear again. And the number one overwhelmingly was, what is a book? And I was really taken aback by that because I'm from 29th Street Publishing and we always are faced with this question, what is a magazine? And to us, a magazine is just something that is serial and has an audience or could have an audience, and those are some of our apps. But I was really taken with this question of like, what is a book? And now we'll see if the anvil works. Yes. It's not a keynote if there's no anvil, guys. So these are some of our titles. The Classical launched on Kickstarter and now has an app with us. Well-established titles like Poetry Magazine. Little Star Weekly is an annual book, and they have a weekly edition. One Story, Mora Magazine. One Teen Story, Christ in Pop Culture is a new title. V as in Victor was actually our first title. The Tehran Bureau launches today. And The All was our second app. They do a weekly of their best articles from their blog. But I want to get back to this idea of what is a book, and I was quite taken with it. Anvil might have broken the, sorry guys, but Anvil is worth it. So I Googled what is a book. I was trying to figure out, like, there must be some sort of like creation myth with a book, and I couldn't quite, there's lots of like dictionary definitions of like a book is anything that is bound, and all of us would disagree. So there's this thing going around called Google Poetics. You guys might have seen this on Twitter. And so I did a book is, and a book is a loaded gun like a frigate at rest on a tabletop. And I thought that was a pretty good one. But it really sort of piqued my interest, like what is going on. And this conference was actually at Workman Publishing, and where they have books of all shapes and sizes. And Emily Gould of Emily Books was there. And she started this sort of like micro meme of like, what's the most intriguing Workman title you'll see on the shelves? So Zen Mind, Zen Horse, the original Duct Tape Halloween book, and then Ben Samuel from Electric Literature pointed out a giant stuffed chicken that somehow was attached to a book. So, it was clearly, it's not a settled point. What is a book? So the technology world is entirely obsessed with disruption. We talk about, e-readers, we talk about Instagram, we talk about, e-readers passing paper books. We talk about like industries and friends and companies having jobs and then losing jobs. And there's some nostalgia and some excitement, but it's something that we very rarely talk about precisely. And so that, here is an example of a Kindle ad from a few years ago. It's like the ultimate disruption, right? The all-time disruption is like the monolith in 2001. And here's the Kindle. But I would actually argue that the e-reader, like the Kindle and even the iPad, where we have our magazines and books, is actually not that disruptive at all. So I was like, what was the first e-reader? I was trying to think back. I've always loved e-readers, and this is what I found. It was the Game Boy Advance. It's the exact same e-reader experience that we have today. People make a book, they make it in their desktop publishing software, they export the text, and then they mark it up or mess it up, and you lose some formatting and images, and you load it on a cartridge, and it shows up in a glowing rectangle. And actually, in a lot of ways, the Game Boy was further ahead than the iPad, because the Game Boy actually had a printer. And I have this printer. So this is actually, it's much closer to the lineage of the book, which is text or an image that you can print and keep in your pocket and go with it wherever you go. And it's something that we lose track of. In the last 20-something years, we've actually made very, very little progress on these experiences. And so one thing, at this unconference, I went to this design, design session with some folks, like very senior design directors at presses like Penguin and Random House, and they were like, well, what are we going to do with design? We're in a post-font world. We have these beautiful apps like Instapaper, and obviously we all probably love Instapaper, but we lose control of type. People can change the font, they can change, well, this is what game designers do, right? Like, game designers make things like Dots. This is Dots. This is the #1 app in the last 2 months. When you talk about like competing with Angry Birds, like it's far worse than that. You know what I mean? Like this is not worried about what font is going up. This is like make a box, and by the way, this is put up by BetaWorks, which is the company that also prides itself on the future of publishing. So this is a map of Zelda. We're working on some comic books, comic apps recently, and we basically started out a conversation like, do you want to do Zelda or Mario, right? So Zelda, most of you may know, you start like in the cave, down here in the lower left, and you're given a weapon, and then you go in any direction you want. And this is Mario, right? Which you also probably remember. It's an entirely different shape. Like, maybe this has a sort of visceral response for some of you, but it's basically, you go in a line, and these are all the lines stacked out. If the projector was the shape, this might go all the way around Javits. But it's a completely different narrative experience. This is like Harry Potter or 24 or Fast and the Furious Part 6. Like, you can love it and return to it, but it's always basically going to be the same. Like, great literature is a lot more like Zelda. It's like The Wire, it's like In Search of Lost Time. You go back to the same place, and it's a little different than it was last time, or maybe you're a little different and you take something a different way. So, I really wanted to sort of, my first draft of this, I basically had wanted to go through 10 things that I loved and talk about, not to be a sort of Debbie Downer about e-readers, but 10 things I loved. And I, obviously ran out of time. So these are some things that I love, but I want to talk about one thing that I really love, and that is this book called I'm Trying to Reach You by Barbara Browning. It was an Emily Books book last December, and hopefully there'll be a better edition of it coming this summer. And this is a book, it's about watching YouTube, it's about YouTube comments, it's about queer theory, and it's a murder mystery. It's this amazing book. Basically, the author basically writes a murder mystery with herself as the protagonist, except the protagonist is a man. And basically a murder uncovers itself in the YouTube comments, and you have to watch YouTube while you're reading the book to understand how the plot is unfolding. And in the endnotes of the book, $2 Radio Press out of Chicago puts out these amazing books, and all their books are set in Garamond. And it says, this book was set in Garamond, the best font. But of course, the e-book edition is not set in Garamond, even though Garamond is the best font. But hopefully the next one will be. This is Masha and 2 members from Pussy Riot. And Barbara Browning's other book's called The Correspondence Artist. And it's about basically similar sort of like murder mystery, chase mystery kind of book. But, throughout the book, emails kept getting caught in spam filters. And I wrote Barbara a book about Pussy Riot, or an email about Pussy Riot, and was caught in her spam filter. So great books actually consume the environment. They don't just adapt to the environment, they consume the environment that you're in. And Zelda, is the same way. This is the opening screen from Zelda. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Basically, we as publishers, authors, designers, writers, have to really be a little more like Zelda and a lot less like Mario. We have to basically you get a new sword, you meet a new enemy, you go to a new environment and a new level, and you adapt. And there's all this talk of like platforms, and we at 29th Street Publishing do a lot of it, and Readmill does a lot of it. But the reality is, like, if you have software that can't, adapt like immediately, you're dead. And that is, that's basically what I wanted to get done today. So thank you very much. That's how to reach us. Please sign up for our mailing list.
Okay, and last but not least, we have Jesse Bering. I'll just read his bio, and you'll understand why we have Jesse here. Jesse Bering began his career as a psychology professor at the University of Arkansas and is a former director of the Institute of Cognition and Culture at Queen's University, Belfast. In 2011, Bering left his academic post in Northern Ireland and returned to the U.S. to write full-time. He's the author of The Belief Instinct, Why is the Penis Shaped Like That?, which, by the way, is the best way to make friends on the subway if you're reading it. And Perv, which will be published in October. So let's all welcome Jesse Bering.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to cheat, actually. Can you hear me now?
Turn the mic switch back on the microphone, please.
How's that? No? Is that good? Okay. I'm going to cheat just to show you the cover of my book, Perv, which has a very seductive sheep. I didn't add this to the slides, but I thought perhaps he'd be a little bit helpful in terms of getting a shot of that. It's The Sexual Deviant in All of Us is the subtitle. I think mine's the only talk that doesn't necessarily focus too much on the technical aspects. It does, I think, maybe get into some of the technical aspects of human sexuality. I'm going to give you a bit of a history tour and some of the conceptual issues that I focused on in this book, Perv. Looking at the paraphilias, this is Wilhelm Steckel. Wilhelm Steckel looked at different types of paraphilias, including this one, which is acrotomophilia, which is sexual attraction to amputees. And he wasn't entirely sure where this necessarily came from. He thought it was a very peculiar type of paraphilia, but it wasn't as unusual as apotomophilia, which is being attracted to yourself when you cut off parts of your body. One question is, where do these paraphilias come from? Do they come from looking at these sort of online carnivalesque porn, for instance? There's one reason to think that that's not the case, and that's the fact that most people who do have paraphilias look back and they say that they can trace it to a very early childhood developmental experience. The trouble with this type of research is that you can't really do controlled studies to find out what causes a paraphilia, because you can't put a group of children in a study to find out what causes them to be attracted to bees, for instance, and wait for 15 years and see if they are sexually attracted to bees. It's just not ethical. But you can do studies with other species, and there have been some comparative studies in which researchers have bred basically paraphilia-like traits in other animals. And one was this case of rats who nursed from a mother dam with her with her teats that were coated with a lemony set, grew up to be attracted only to other females that smelled like their mother's teats with lemon. In this study, sheep and goats were switched at birth. So baby goats were raised by sheep, baby sheep were raised by goats. There was an interesting sex difference when these animals grew into sexual maturity. The males of both species would only mate with their adoptive species, whereas the females would go both ways, basically, in terms of whichever was available. Bonobos, of course, have been one species that have been emphasized, I think, in terms of the evolution of human sexuality. I think we need to be careful, though, with our discussion about bonobo sexuality, because we do share a common ancestor with them over 2.5 million years ago, so quite a lot of time has passed since we shared an ancestor. I just wanted to give you a sort of an interesting story, an anecdote about Lucy. She was one of the sign language chimpanzees in the 1960s, raised by this psychologist, Maurice Temerlin. she was raised as a human being, basically, and when she reached sexual maturity, she could only obtain sexual gratification by masturbating on copies of Playgirl and spreading out the centerfolds in front of her. She wasn't attracted to other chimpanzees. So there definitely is some imprinting process happening there. If you're a clinical psychologist and you look at the paraphilias and the different types of fetishes and sexual deviations, you're going to use this as your intellectual Bible, essentially, the DSM-5. What is a paraphilia and what isn't. One of the big issues in the sexual disorders research recently, this is me as a 13-year-old, is the question of, are people who are attracted to pubescent age children, not prepubescent, but pubescent age, sort of the Lolita type of age pattern, do they have a sexual disorder, or is that sort of within the scope of what is normal? My first experience with a sexual deviant was when I was about that age, in that slide that you just saw, when I was at a Target, the Target shopping for a guinea pig as a pet. There was a man there who kept asking me to bend down and take a close look at the guinea pigs, and he kept rubbing my backside as I was doing that. And I thought that was kind of peculiar. So the question of, was that harmful, was that not harmful, these are the types of issues that I really wanted to get at in this book. What is harm? What do we mean by harm? Charles Baudelaire said that he was particularly attracted to female giantesses and dwarves, but I think we need to take that with a grain of salt. There are over 500 different, apparently distinct paraphilias. This person is having an orgasm. He's not really, but there are people apparently that do have orgasms by falling down the stairs. It's called climactophilia. Some of the more common paraphilias seem to be related to this concept of a courtship disorder. So voyeurism, exhibitionism, frotturism, where you touch people in public places. This seems to be segments of the courtship display or the mating display, where people are sort of emphasizing or getting stuck on one particular component of the courtship act, and they like that more than intercourse. People can have sexual fetishes to all sorts of things, including crutches and wheelchairs and hearing aids and rubber swim caps, anything imaginable, basically. The key point is that it has to make physical contact with the person's body that they are sexually attracted to. The essence of the person, basically, is rubbing off on the individual. They're not just attracted to new objects. It has to make contact with the person. My first experience sexually with another male, actually, was with a Diet Coke can, because the boy that I had a crush on in high school threw that away, and I drank the Diet Coke can and pleasured myself to it, embarrassingly enough, because I couldn't kiss him. He was straight. What else am I going to do? But that's an example of fetishism. I'm not a fetishist, but I think all of us have some experiences like that. Maybe, maybe not. This is Erica Eiffel. She married the Eiffel Tower. She is not a fetishist. She's also a professional archer. She is an objectophile, or an objectum sexual. These people don't like a whole class of objects like fetishism, but instead they are attracted to individual objects because they believe the objects have feelings back for them. So she likes the Eiffel Tower and the Berlin Wall. There are others that like ladders, anything imaginable, basically, and they feel like they have sexual feelings back for them. Another very common sort of category of paraphilia is the partialism. Is partialism. Partialists are individuals that are attracted to a very specific part of the body. Any bodily part, basically, any real estate can be sexually attractive. There are some dark material, I think, that I had to go into with this book, and one was this story of a morbidly obese teenage boy who was not particularly good in terms of cleaning himself, and he grew all sorts of wounds. And when he masturbated, he basically stuck his hand in the wounds and imagined that it was a woman's mouth that he was pleasuring himself to. But it just goes to show the extent of the human imagination in being able to conjure up erotic scenes and what can be subjectively attractive and what can't. Thank you. Now you think I'm a pervert, but that's okay.
Can we have another round of applause for Jesse and all the presenters? See, you learned something today. Maybe some stuff you can use as pickup lines. about sexual deviance. So thank you everybody for coming. There's a bar around here somewhere. Have fun finding it. Yeah. That's it. Goodbye.